Welcome back to the couch, everybody. Welcome back to another NBA episode. I am joined by my friend Max, as always. This is our, 14th time trying to record this, Max?
Yeah, this has been a mess. I'm done with the preamble. We're going to talk about the Pistons, and then we're going to be doing our top 10 under 25 guys. We've recorded this about 15 times, and finally, hopefully, this is the one that sticks.
Yeah, we had like a whole fun discussion about movies and stuff, and now we're scrapping the whole thing. We're going into the Pistons because we're sick of it. All right, so today we are going to be talking about Cade Cunningham and the Pistons' recent success. They have won 10 of their last 12 games, including a big win over the Knicks last night, and then that's going to lead us into our top 10 NBA players 25 years of age and under. So we got a pretty packed episode. Max, let's start with the Pistons. There's a million ways to go here, but this is a team that won 14 games in all of last season. And like I mentioned, they've won 10 of their last 12. What do you attribute this success to?
Well, they got some adults in the room, and they got a good coach. I think those are the two biggest things. So Monty Williams, I don't know what the hell he was doing last year, but it was truly awful. You saw him playing Killian Hayes over Jaden Ivey, which was, I mean, from our couch, we could tell you that that was a mistake, but somehow Monty wasn't seeing that. So we see Jaden Ivey getting ramped up, getting more minutes, getting better development. Obviously, he broke his leg and is out. I think on the broadcast, they said last night that he might be coming back, but I think mostly for the most of the season, he's going to be out. It might have been Walt Frazier who said, or whatever. Who's the other play-by-play guy?
Yeah, it's Walt Frazier for the Knicks. He just has no idea what he's talking about. He's very good at rhyming words, like dishing and swishing, but that's really all he's been good for as of late for me. He broke his leg. I'd be surprised if he comes back. I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
I haven't read a recent
update.
But
I swear Walt Frazier was like, nah, partner, I think he's coming back in February. So I don't know. He'll be dishing and swishing again in February. But
mesmerizing and tantalizing down the floor. Jaden Ivey.
As I've watched Walt Frazier more or listened to him more, I do think he's very funny, but he's kind of tough to listen to, especially because he's with Breen, who is my favorite announcer.
He just gives no analysis and only focuses on rhyming with basketball terms. That's all he does.
He's very old, and then sometimes he'll hit like a little brief, just incomprehensible sentence, and you're like, I don't know what he just said. So it's pretty good.
Then there's Mike Breen, who's just the Michael Jordan of announcing play-by-play guys, especially for local teams, and he's paired up with a legend, no doubt, but maybe a bit of an elderly fellow in Walt Frazier. But,
yeah, absolutely. But we're talking Pistons, and really they just got a bunch of adults in the room. So JB Bickerstaff, who's a coach who's known for his ability to develop young players, has done just that. He set this new culture in Detroit. And then you got older guys like Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Tobias Harris to come in, and Paul Reed as well, just to come in and be the older vets to teach these young guys and get them under their wings, so to say. And those guys, they've been in a lot of important basketball games. So those guys, when it gets down to these, close quarters, which the fourth quarters of every Pistons game are close, these guys are able to know what to do, and you see a lot of just mature veteran moves happening, in these late game things. So I think those are the two biggest things. And then obviously Cade Cunningham's development. He has really taken a step this year. He's playing at an all-star level. And from what we've seen years past, we expected this out of Cade, but he's really playing well right now.
Yeah, you mentioned the clutch games. It feels like every time you watch a Pistons game, it's just coming down to the wire in some crazy fashion, and it's been so fun to watch. They have 14 clutch wins on the season, which is tied with the Cavaliers for the most. The Cavs, of course, on an absurd pace. They're 14-2 in clutch games, but the Pistons 14-9. So they've played in 23 of these clutch games so far this year, which is just absolutely incredible. Yeah, I like what you said about, replacing some of the guys from last year with new guys. I mean, no offense to guys like Alec Burks, James Wiseman, Kevin Knox, Killian Hayes, but they were, not winning basketball players, just pretty simply, simple as that. And then Hardaway and Beasley come in, and not only are those guys like people who you mentioned have been around and been in big spots, but they complement Cade Cunningham's skill set so perfectly because of their ability to shoot. And when you pair up Cade with guys who just need an inch of separation to get a shot off, and guys who can knock it down really efficiently like those two can, y- you get this version of the Pistons because Cade has been so good at hunting his shooters and, being really aware of when, they have too much space, when the defense is sagging off of those guys and hitting them right away with his, of course, excellent passing ability. And then honestly, like Tobias Harris, I know we gave him a lot of shit when he was in Philly, a lot of Philly fans, not the biggest, Tobias Harris fans, but he's been awesome. Like he's just been an upgrade for them. I mean, maybe awesome is too strong. He's just Tobias Harris, but it's a real adult in the room, like you said, a guy who knows how to play basketball. He's been really good. Off drives, physicality, attacking the basket, and just gives them an upgrade at their wing spot that they didn't have last year. So. Yeah, I mean, they're just one of the most fun teams to watch right now, and on an incredible hot streak. I do want to talk about Cade specifically a little bit. I mentioned the passing, but the shooting has been a really big development for him as well. Last year shot 35.5% from three, this year up to 38%. But even bigger than that to me is the pull-up three percentage, which has gone from 32% to 37.6%. So just under 38% on pull-up threes. I think that is completely changing the ways in which Cade is being guarded, and the ways in which you're seeing teams have to commit more resources to him, because it's really he has such a good mid-range game. He's good at getting into the lane. He's good at kicking out, drawing help. So you have to worry about all that. But now, like, you can't give him space coming off a screen, walking into that pull-up three, or else he's going to punish you. So, teams have still been guarding him a lot in drop coverage because he is so good at getting into the lane. But he's punishing it a lot more with these pull-up threes. And I think that's been a really important development.
And he's up from 7.5 assists to 9.4 assists this year. So he's also, he's attacking you that way, where when you do close out on him as a 3-point shooter, he's able to dish it out and find the guys that are open to get those open shots. So he is really taking advantage of the defense and the way that they're guarding him. And he's playing like a true just savant. Like the entire offense runs right through Cade, and that's a good thing. He can bring down guys to his speed, whether that's very fast or playing slow. And honestly, if you look at how this roster is built, there's not a lot of holes in it whatsoever. They have good bigs. They have Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart, and then they have good wings and guard players. So there's a lot of guys that can create a little bit off the dribble, but really flourish when there's a guy with the ball in his hands who's creating for them. So Cade, I think, is really optimized with this group that they put around him. And I honestly think they should just keep it together and keep pushing and developing what his peak could be. But the way that he's looking right now, he's really playing incredible. And this Pistons team is getting wins, and they're really fun to watch. So I think JB Bickerstaff was one of the most underrated moves of the offseason. I know people talked about it was addition by subtraction with getting rid of Monty Williams, but bringing JB Bickerstaff in here, I'd say it was an A-plus move, because the whole dynamic of the team has changed. You can see that he's actually coaching those players up, and that it just seems like there's good vibes coming out of Detroit right now. So I'm really impressed with this team. And like you said, Cade in particular is really becoming a star before our very eyes.
Yeah, I do want to shout out some other guys as well. It's been awesome to see Asar Thompson play
Yeah.
a pretty healthy stretch here. Just an unbelievable athlete, a wrecking ball on defense, a good rebounder. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, did you see last night? He got a rebound. It was like the first half, probably the second quarter. He gets a rebound and he takes it full court, and he beat everyone. Like people that were in front of him, he beat them down the court. That guy is, I know if you watch him every night, like we watch a lot of Pistons basketball, so you've obviously noticed that. But if you guys were tuning in to the Pistons for the first time, maybe because they're at MSG, Asar Thompson, man, he is a next level athlete. He is 99th percentile athlete. Him and his brother are, and I hope he develops a jumper. He hit a three last night, which was shocking, but that guy's an elite level athlete.
Yeah, it's crazy with both of these Thompson twins. Like you can see the high ceiling, but you can also see even if they don't hit their ceiling, they're going to be really impactful role players for as long
Yeah.
as they are this athletic, because you don't see a lot of guys in the NBA who like stick out like a sore thumb because of their athleticism every single game and continue to make play after play simply because they're bigger, stronger, faster, quicker than everyone. They're just more athletic than everyone that they're playing. It is absolutely incredible. So even if like Asar doesn't develop a jump shot, even if he doesn't, have these on-ball skills and he's not like this big, 6'8" point guard or pick and roll ball handler, whatever, he's going to be great as a cutter. He's going to be great as a rebounder. He's going to be great as a defender. And they're in a good spot with some of this young talent that they have now with him, Asar, Jaden Ivey, and Cade Cunningham. That's a pretty good core. I mean, Jalen Duren, people are, have mixed feelings about. I think he's had a good season. He's very physical. Another guy who's just a freak athlete, and another good young building block to keep around. But Cade is obviously the head of the snake here. Hopefully, Jaden Ivey can develop into that co-star. It's interesting. Before the season, I kind of had the thought like I saw the moves they made with Harris, with Beasley, with Tim Hardaway, and I was like, man, like they're gonna be a lot better this season, no doubt. And I kind of had the thought, like, is that the right move? Like, should they just continue to be bad and go and try and enter the Cooper Flag sweepstakes and try and get another high pick and find another guy to really pair with Cade? Or even at that time, I maybe wasn't as high on Cade and was like, maybe Cade isn't the answer. Maybe they can go get Flag and then Flag is their guy and Cade is the second guy. But I think they've done the right thing. I think you have your guy in Cade now, and you're competitive, and you're still gonna get some sort of a decent pick. It's not like they're gonna end up as a top 5 seed or anything. I wouldn't expect them to, but I think it's kind of an interesting discussion with young teams, like which way they decide to go in terms of bottoming out, or in terms of trying to be competitive. And I think they've made the right move, and they're building a pretty good culture.
Yeah, definitely. I think tanking has its flaws. Definitely, you're seeing teams that are building losing cultures, and I think we saw an example of it last night with Colin Sexton and Isaiah Collier in Utah, where Colin Sexton is calling for the ball from Isaiah Collier, who has glue on his hands. That guy is never passing the ball, and he ends up yelling back and doesn't focus and literally has like a 8 second or a 10 second violation in the backcourt or whatever, and it leads to like this heated dispute on the sideline. And those are teams that have, when you're tanking, you have this losing culture, and it's really hard to get out of the act of losing and to become winners. Like if you're a losing team with a losing culture, it's very hard to change that and become a winning team with a winning culture. So I think tanking for a specific player makes sense. And I do think there are teams that need to do it because you're not you might not be a free agency destination and need to build through the draft. So I get doing it that way. But when you're a team like this where you've already had your first draft, the number one overall pick, you made the right pick, and you are actually have a direction. Go towards that direction and learn how to win basketball games, because we saw it with the Celtics and with other teams that were young and good. You have to get a bunch of those bruises, and you have to go and have those wars in the playoffs, because young teams don't really win the playoffs. They don't really win the finals. They instead they get that accumulation of experience and age and understanding of how to play in the playoffs, and then when your guys are entering your prime, that's when you see people start winning championships. So at this age, it's time for them to shift focus, go towards winning playoff games and trying to. I think they're going to be a playoff team for sure. I think they could even win a series. So for them, I'd be trying to start that development of playoff wins. And honestly, this draft is so freaking deep that they could still get a really good piece. Now it's not going to be a Cooper Flag type guy, but it doesn't really need to be. This draft has just about any type of player that you want. And they could easily get one of those guys into the building right away and have him be an impactful starter for them. So I think they are in a fantastic situation to do both of those things, and I can't wait to see what they do. Also, shout out Ron Holland. The kid can't shoot for shit, but I enjoy watching how hard he plays, and I hope he eventually develops. I'm a little worried about him, but he is fun to watch. He plays really, really hard. But yeah, Cade, they nailed it with that pick. I think when he was like a nice wildflower seed in a landfill. It's very hard to grow in that shit that they had going on in Detroit for the first couple of years. But now they've cleared away all the garbage. They put out some nice soil for him, and you're seeing him start to flourish and become a beautiful flower. So that might have been the weirdest simile or whatever metaphor I've ever used, but I think it does work in this scenario.
I thought it was excellent personally, and I know that the listeners
Cosmo, Jordan. He'd be a Cosmo. He'd be a Cosmo flower.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah, no, they
So
they
that would
do
be
still
good.
have like these young raw guys like Asar, like Ron Holland, Jalen Duren, like that can continue to develop and maybe potentially be stars in the future. So we will see with that. But with that said, Max, what do you say we go ahead and we've been inspired by Cade's play of late. He is only 23 years old. He's going to make his first All-Star team this year. Um, let's rank our top 10 under 25 or 25 or under players in the NBA. Why don't you start with your number? You want to go number 10 or number 1?
Well, I think number one's gonna be the same for both of us, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So should we go top down? Because I feel like the biggest trouble I had was after like three. I think my top three are pretty set.
Okay,
Um.
well, let's hear your top
So
3 then.
yeah. So first off, let me read off who I said was eligible. We have Luca's 25, Paolo's 22, J Dub is 23, Chet's 22, Sengun is 22, Ant is 23, John Morant is 25, Franz is 23, Cade is 23, Garland's 24, Jaren Jackson Jr. is 25, Scotty Barnes is 24, Tyrese Halliburton's 24, LaMelo's 23, Tyrese Maxey's 24, Evan Mobley's 23, and Jalen Johnson is 22. Um, those are the guys that I would think would be in the top or have potential to be in the top 10. Um, I didn't name every player that's under 25 in the NBA, but those are just the top guys I'd say. So my number one is Wemby. He's 20 years old, generational talent, potentially MVP, potentially All Star. You name it. I would not be surprised if Wemby is an all-time player. He's an all-time talent, and I think that the way that reading more about him and learning more about him, the way that he takes care of himself and the way that he's been preparing to be an NBA superstar since he was 9 years old, it's LeBron-esque, and I really think that he is going to be someone that will not get very injured because of the way that the Spurs are protecting him and the way that he takes care of himself, and someone that's going to be extremely successful in this league. So I think we both have Wemby at number one.
Yeah, no arguments there.
Yeah, and this is a potential ranking, by the way. So it's not we're not saying who we take right now. We're saying who we'd build around.
Yes, good qualifier. Like
And
who
then
who you would build your team around right now. Yeah.
yes, so this is where I think these guys are both top three. I just don't know the positioning, and I took Paolo at number two, 22 years old. I see him becoming an MVP, an All Star, and I could absolutely see him be the number one option on a championship team. And the number three, I have Luca. We know he's an MVP level talent, an All Star, whatever. The reason that I have Paolo ahead of Luca is that one, Luca's 25 years old, and he is not shown that he is a healthy player right now. Now I know Paolo's coming back off an injury, but that was more of a freak injury. He tore like his labrum or something, or his
Bleak.
oblique. Yeah, oblique. Very strange injury that him and Franz both got. Miraculously weird. Luca has calf, ankle, and knee problems. Continuously has had them. He's injured right now. He has not been one that you see himself into shape a lot of times. And as you get older, that's just going to be harder to do. And as much as I really like Luca and think he's incredible, I think I would rather build around Paolo because you have those 3 extra seasons of age difference. Plus, we know that Paolo's coming into shape, and I think the thing that he could be at 6'10" with his shot making ability and everything that he brings to the table, I'm just gonna have Paolo at two. And Luka
Yeah,
at
I
three.
I disagree with this. I love Palo. The Magic have been one of my favorite teams for the last couple seasons. I have Luca at 2. I just think the offensive engine that he is an all-time great offensive player. I don't know if I see Palo ever reaching the heights that Luca is at even right now. And Luca is still 25 years old. The shot making ability, the scoring ability to get to the line, as well as he's one of the best passers in the world. I mean that's the thing that Paolo just doesn't have, and I don't see him getting. That's something that Luca is like born with and then continued to grow and blossom, and he is now just an unstoppable passer, like coming off like you can do anything to Luca. You can throw 2 guys at him, 3 guys at him, you can trap him in the corner. He's gonna find a way to find the open man and make a ridiculous pass from whatever kind of position he's in. I just think he is going to be a top 2 probably offensive player in the league for the next 5 to 7 years. And I don't know if Paolo has that type of ceiling, but that's actually not even like my biggest gripe with having Paolo there. I think you left out another guy of this top 3, because Anthony Edwards is my number three player. He is
He's four. He's
okay,
four for
yeah,
me.
that's fine. He's 23 years old, and I know that the Timberwolves aren't having the season that we wanted them to, that a lot of people expected them to, that they had last year. But Anthony Edwards is one of the best athletes in the NBA, just pure athletes. And he's now become one of the best pull-up jump shooters in the entire league. And I just think that the level of scorer that Ant is and will become, I think it's better than Paolo. And not to mention, Ant is a great defender because of that athleticism. You know, he maybe isn't the most focused and locked in for every possession, but when it comes to playoff time and when it comes time to get a stop, Anthony Edwards is up there with anybody as an on-ball defender. So I'm taking Ant at my number three spot. I think it's a little bit premature to have Paolo above him just because we haven't seen enough of Paolo yet. Yes, we think he's on a very upward trajectory, of course, and I have Paolo in my four spot, but I think for me, it's Wemby, Luka, Ant pretty clearly, and then Paolo. But go ahead.
I mean, Paolo he's averaging 28.4 points per game. He's shooting 40.5% from three this season. He's shooting 50.8% from the field. I know he only played a few games before he got injured, but I was watching him against the Bucks go head to head against Giannis, and his shot making in that game was incredible. He was taking advantage of defenders leaving him with an inch of space and hitting threes in their mouth. And the shot making from a guy at his size is incredible. And I think that he can develop this passing game. But if you're going to knock him for passing, I'm not sure having Ant as your number three guy
No, that was
is
more the
right.
Luka argument.
That's
With
the more the Luka
Ant,
thing. Yeah.
with Ant, it's the shooting. Like Ant is just. We talked about Asar and Amen as like two of the best athletes. Ant is right there in that 99th percentile of athlete, but he's also become an unbelievable shooter. So that's where I'm at with Ant.
Well, Paolo is developing into an incredible shooter as well, and he is also a 99% level athlete. Plus, he's 6'10", and he has shown that he can develop this mid-range game that Anthony Edwards has been developing as of late, obviously. But Paolo is a little further along in that development, and I have seen him start to have those head up passing moments a little bit more. Granted, like he still obviously needs to work on that. He's only at 5.3 assists per game right now. He needs to get those numbers up, especially with the way that he's being guarded. But at 22 years old, downloading all this information on the fly and doing all this, now I know Ant is 23, but I think if you're building out for the future, what Paolo could become, I think is a more scary player than Ant. And now I love Ant, so I feel like I'm talking bad about him. I'm not trying to, but and I as a playmaker more or as a player more, I think Paolo is just one of those guys. Now they're both really clutch guys and they're both great shot makers, so it's hard to you know, broadcast out what they're going to be. But the reason I had Paolo over Luka is just the injury stuff. It's just that because this seems like it's going to be a nagging thing for Luka. It's been nagging him throughout his career, but he's been able to stay healthy enough, especially in the playoffs, to drag teams to the finals. But I'm starting to get a little worried here. This is starting to be like he was already having a down season by Luka standards, and for him to miss extended time again with a nagging calf injury, and that's one of those injuries that you're not going to be able to work through and run through. It's going to take him some time to get back into shape, and I just think if you're losing, a couple months out of the season due to injuries with Luka every year, it's a little he's just starting to I'm on a little bit of a notice here just with Luka, like just be mindful of the injuries. That's all.
Yeah, fair enough. Man, I don't think we have to argue it anymore. I just think Ant is such a special like downhill driver. And I don't think Paolo is that level of
Paolo
athlete.
is, dude. Paolo is that level of athlete. He is an incredible athlete. Now, it doesn't pop off as much because he's 6'10", but I saw I know you watched that Bucks game. He was going coast to coast on some of these drives and slamming in people's faces. Like this, Paolo is an elite level athlete, and the way that he's breaking down very good defenders, both wing defenders and big defenders, is very interesting stuff. Because Ant's over here complaining about being double teamed. Paolo's getting double teamed routinely and getting out of it. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, they've both been in like really bad offensive situations to start their career. I want to see both of them, surrounded by shooting, surrounded by other scorers, guys who can take the pressure off them. I really want to see Anthony Edwards with a more open paint because it seems like whenever he drives, there's just 3, 4 guys around him every time.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's halting his finishing ability. And I think that's like probably his best trait. So we'll see going forward. I would take Ant, but
And
that fair enough.
and I mean with Paolo, it's like they literally are like last in 3-point shooting in the league. So it's who does he pass it to shoot the ball. So I think we're done with this part. Who do you have at number 5?
Number 5, I have Chet Holmgren, and I actually really struggled here. I'll spoil it. I had Cade at my number 6, and I went back and forth between Chet and Cade. But what it came down to here for me is Chet's two-way impact, because Chet has a chance now he's already one of the best defenders in the league. Yes, he has a broken hip. You might have some injury concerns, but when you talk about a guy's ceiling, like Chet is already one of the best defenders in the league, and he is becoming this really special scorer at 7 feet tall, a guy who can handle, a guy who can attack off the bounce, score in the mid range, obviously catch lobs, run the break. Like he's such a fluid athlete and mover at that size. It is so special to see a guy at that size operating off the catch and off the dribble like Chet does. So I think there's a real chance that Chet could become like the best defender in the world, as well as like one of the 5 to 10 best scorers in the world. And I think that I would take that two-way impact over the playmaking edge that you get with Cade Cunningham, because Chet obviously will probably never be the level of passer that Cade is, but if he can be near the same level of scorer as Cade, I would take the defense, because Chet can just completely change games with his defensive impact. And by the way, we probably should have mentioned Cade has been great on defense as well, but you just can't have the same level of impact as a guard as you can as a pure rim protector and a versatile big like Chet.
Yeah, someone who's a little over 7 foot tall is just not going to have the same, or is going to have a different impact than, another 6'8" guy or 6'6" guy. I have the same 5 and 6. I have Chet at 5, Cade at 6, Chet 22, Cade 23. Both guys very young. Chet, I think, has potential to be higher on this list if we were to do it, a couple of years down the road. The problem with him, again, is injuries. He missed his rookie season. Because of an injury, he came back, looked good, and then he's injured again with like a broken hip, which is a very weird injury to get. Someone that we are worried about if he's going to be able to put weight on his frame. Someone who has a frail frame. Just someone overall that we're a little worried about with injuries. So that's the reason I might have knocked him a little bit. I think what he projects to be, if he is optimized, is a really, really elite, high level player, someone that could even potentially be a number 1 option on a championship winning team. So I think Cade, maybe not as much of a number 1 option, but more of the entire playmaking hub and the entire offensive hub of a championship team. Maybe he's not scoring as much, but he'll be facilitating and doing all that. I think I could see Cade doing that. So these two guys are really good. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back with our 7 through 10.
All right, coming back, Max and I had the same 5 and 6 with Chet and Cade. Max, it is time to hear your number 7.
So 7 through 10 is where I had the most difficulty. If you're looking at for the listeners on YouTube, there's a lot of arrows and crossouts and things like that. This was where it gets messy. So I landed on Jalen Johnson, the 22-year-old do it all player, defensive hub. Offensively, I know he's been injured a little bit. Offensively, watching him for Atlanta, I'm seeing him do things that are pointing towards development. He's passing the ball well. He's shooting the ball well. He has the ball in his hands a lot. And I think he is on an upward trajectory that maybe not a lot of people are talking about. But I think after watching him so much, I see him as this really, really good two-way player, almost Tatum-like, where he does it all. He does a little bit of everything. He might not be elite at any one thing, but he's very good at everything else. And I think at his size and his fluidity and movement, I just think that Jalen Johnson projects to be someone who is a very, very good NBA player, someone that could even be a number 1 option on a championship winning team. I think this might get a lot of heat now, but watch it play out. I think Jalen Johnson is going to be incredible.
Yeah, I think it's too early to have him on this list, and you might not be wrong. You might just be early, and we come back to this in however many years, and you're like, see, Jalen Johnson belonged on this list. He belonged even higher, actually, on this list because he does have a super, sky high ceiling. For me, I don't see the ball handling upside and the creation upside with him. I think he's a really good passer. He's a obviously special athlete. He can be a really good defender. The jump shot is coming along, but I don't see him being a guy that you give the ball to and you say, take us to the promised land, really ever in his career. And that's not, to say that you have to be that type of guy to make it onto this list. I just don't think he could ever be the best player on a championship team, in my opinion. And my number seven, I thought this was pretty easy for number seven. I went Evan Mobley. He is 23 years old and he is having the breakout season. He is take everything I said with Chet, one of the best defenders in the world. Extremely long, extremely fluid mover, incredible athlete. And now the offense is starting to come along a little bit for Mobley. He's not quite, he doesn't have the handle. He doesn't have quite the off the bounce stuff that Chet does with the pull up, shot making, the three. But you tone down Chet's offense just a little bit, and you are left with Evan Mobley, what we're seeing from him this season. He's shooting the ball at a much higher rate from three, much more efficient. We're seeing him attack off the bounce a lot more and showing that he can be more, than just what he's been for the first part of his career, which is basically a nothing on offense, maybe a slight positive. Now he's become a guy who can not only set screens and roll and catch lobs, but he can, be the popper in a pick and pop and knock down threes. He can attack off the bounce and drive closeouts, drive through guys' chests. And now we're seeing him really like operate as a pick and roll ball handler and take the ball and be aggressive and go through guys' chests and score. Like the Cavaliers at the end of the Thunder game draw up a play for Evan Mobley at like in clutch time. They need a basket. They draw it up. Evan Mobley catches it at the top of the key, takes Hartenstein one-on-one, and gets a nice little floater over the top of him. He's 23 years old. I think the offensive ceiling for him is so much higher than a guy like Jalen Johnson. I just think at that size and the shot making growth and the ball handling
All
growth
right.
that he's shown
Okay.
this season,
Okay.
I think Evan Mobley is a clear number seven. And then you add on to the defense. I mean, it's not even close.
All right. I disagree with this. I think Evan Mobley is a great player. You saying that his offensive ceiling is higher than Jalen Johnson's, I just don't see that whatsoever.
He's
He is
7 feet
very
tall.
limited. It doesn't matter that he's 7 feet tall. He is very limited as a playmaker and as a shot creator for himself, where Jalen Johnson creates his own shot and is a very good playmaker. I don't think that, dude, he's had a couple of good games. Like he's had a good season so far. Not a couple good games. That was a mistake. He's had a good season so far. I do not see him as a number one option on a championship team. And I know you don't see Jalen Johnson as that either, but I think that would be more likely offensively than Evan Mobley being the creator. You don't
I'll
look
say
look
this.
at the
I'll
guys
say
that are like
this. Evan Mobley will not be a number one option in terms of your creator. Evan Mobley, though, could be the best overall player on a championship team. That doesn't mean that you have to run everything through him.
yeah.
Um, but Evan Mobley, because of his defense, you could say that's the guy that has the biggest impact on the game. And I don't think that
I see
Jalen
that.
Johnson will get there.
Okay, I see that, but I don't think that he has a higher offensive upside than Jalen Johnson. I just don't. That shot
I
making
like
ability of
like
Jalen
Jalen
Johnson.
Johnson has, he's a better passer, no doubt.
He has
Mobley,
everything. Yeah.
what?
He has everything offensively. He's just not great at any one thing, but he does have everything offensively.
Yeah, I don't know. Like when Mobley puts his head down and he decides he wants to score, like I just think he has like a bigger advantage athletically because of his size and his physicality. And I mean, Johnson, he is big and physical as well, and he is probably a better vertical athlete. But Mobley can just shoot over guys. He dunks on guys. Like I don't know. I just like Mobley.
I know you like him, but yeah, I don't. He doesn't move. You can have a 7 footer who is a great offensive player. You look at Cat, you look at Kristaps Porzingis, guys like that. I don't see that necessary. I don't see that fluid offensive movement, and ability to create shots for himself coming. Maybe it does get there. Maybe I'm missing it. I've seen flashes of it for sure. I just would be a little bit more surprised if he turns into a Karl Anthony Towns level offensive player.
No, I mean he's never going to be the shooter that Cat is, and
Yeah,
very rarely do we see a big man as good of a shooter as Cat. But
yeah.
Mobley can really like start to drive and like the pull-up jumper is coming too. Like he actually has hit like step back threes and pull-up threes. Obviously it's on a lower volume than a lot of guys, but he's 23 years old, and I think he's going to continue to develop. And if he like that's another guy where if he hits his ceiling, I just think it's higher than a guy like Jalen Johnson. But who do you have at number 8?
So at number 8, I did have Mobley.
Okay.
So it's we're like arguing hairs here, but at number 9, I had Ja Morant, and I just don't get Ja, man. I love Ja and I love watching him play, but it's like I can't understand. I don't know how good he actually is because he is good. He's a good player, but I don't know how good he is, if that makes sense. Like it's just something with his size, and I just don't know if I see. I don't know if I see that he can drag a team to the playoffs and be this number one guy on a championship winning team. And that's really ultimately what this list was for me, which is we're trying to develop, we're trying to pick guys to build around. And you pick, building blocks. If you're taking your top picks, those are guys that you think can drag you to a championship. And Ja Morant is an incredible player. He's incredibly athletic, but the wear and tear that he gets on his body it's just like I'm a little worried about that in the long run. And then in terms of scoring, he's just not a prolific scorer, and he never really has been. He's averaging 21.4 points per game. He's shooting 31% from three. He's never been a really great three-point shooter. His best three-point shooting year was in 2021, where he shot 34% from three. He's shooting 31% this year. He he's a really fun player to watch, but I don't think he's this offensive hub with a ton of creation. I mean, he's averaging 7.3 assists per game, which is really, really good, but that's down from last year at 8.1. I don't know if I ever see him being a guy that consistently averages like 28 or more points per game, which I do see with some of these guys. And at his age, 25, these really small guards that are uber athletic, they tend to start going down a little bit after they're 25, after they kind of are 25, 26, 27. It starts to get a little gamey here. So I think I had Ja on this list mostly because it's like he has to go at some point because he's good enough. He is a good player, but it's like what am I expecting out of him if I'm building around him in the long run? I don't know. I just think he's leaving some to be desired for sure.
Yeah, I think a lot of people probably listened to this and thought, how has Ja not been mentioned yet? But I have Ja even later on the list. I have him at number 10. And yeah, I mean, he is a spectacular athlete. He is one of the most exciting players in the league to watch, some of the coolest highlights that you'll ever see. And he is, beyond just the excitement factor, like he's a really impactful player. He's a very good passer. He's a good scorer. The problem with Ja is he can't shoot. Like he struggles to be efficient from three, and he's had efficiency struggles on all fronts this season. I think he's at 44% from the field on the season and 32% from three,
Yeah,
something like that. So it's just
31.
an efficiency thing with Ja. And if you're a small guard and you don't have a reliable 3-point jump shot, like it's going to be tough for me to have you any higher than this, especially because it's really hard to be an elite level defender at that size as well. So I have Ja even lower than you at number 10. But my number 8 guy, I'm starting to wonder if you'll even have him on your list, is Franz Wagner. And he is 23 years old. We saw, Paolo go down, and we saw Franz Wagner absolutely take off. This season, through 25 games, he was averaging 24 and a half points on 46.5% from the field, with 6 assists and just really, really solid defense. So Franz, for me, like, he's another guy who's not as polished. He's not as established as, say, a guy like Ja Morant, who's been around longer. Like, we were really just starting to see Franz, just crack the surface of what he can really be. But at 6'10", a very good defender, a very good playmaker who can get downhill and see over the top of defenses, make all types of passes, a great finisher at the rim. And then the jump shot started to come along. It doesn't show in the 3-point efficiency for his season, which is only at 33%. But in that stretch, I mean, he had games where he was like, 5 for 8 from three, 4 for 7 from three, like 4 for 9 from three, and hit big threes in big moments as well. So I think Franz showed enough in that stretch for me to be like, okay, this is a guy that if he really puts it all together, and just becomes like a 36% 3-point shooter, like he's going to be a very, very difficult to stop offensive engine, because of the handle and the physicality and the driving ability, at that size. So I have Franz at number 8. Curious to hear if you even have him on the list.
I have him at 10, but I've crossed him out and put I had 10. 10 was the hardest one. I was between J-Dub, Garland, Franz, LaMelo. I think were the three that were like, and Halliburton were the three that were like in contention. I just think I couldn't pick LaMelo because as good as he is with the counting stats, I don't think that guy is ever going to play a game of winning basketball in his life because he is not a winning type of basketball player. He doesn't take it seriously. He's never once shown that he is a serious type of guy. And you just got to be a little bit different to be successful. Like the maturing that you have to do. And we see it every day with the Celtics, right? This is not a team. This is a fun team and they're kind of goofy, right? But they are locked the fuck in. Tatum and Brown are locked the fuck in to a point where it's almost like unsettling how locked in they are. And it was only when they flipped that switch, which ironically came when Joe Mazzulla was their head coach, a little bit with Ime, but definitely with Joe, who's like an alpha male, locked the fuck in type of guy, that they really obviously made that change and became those guys that were able to push and become champions. And I know Jokic is goofy and all these other guys are goofy, but they are locked the fuck in when the games matter. And I just don't see LaMelo ever becoming that type of player. He never has been. He's played in important games before and he just goofs off. And I don't know if you can get to him like that. So that's kind of where I had him there because I think LaMelo, unfortunately, is always just going to be a good stats, bad team type of player. And then J-Dub, I would be really, really surprised if J-Dub becomes the number one option on a championship team. Franz, I would also be surprised about, but if you told me Franz becomes like a Jaylen Brown type of guy where he's the number two option on a championship team with Paolo as your number one, I see that happening definitely, and I could see that with J-Dub potentially even this year, but I don't know. I have Franz for all the reasons that you said. With Garland, he's just not consistent enough, I guess, so I kind of knocked him for that. Franz, I think, is one of those guys that's a plug and play guy, and he can be good on just about every team that he's on. And I was really intrigued seeing him until he obviously injured his oblique as well, which is insane.
Yeah, so Franz was my number 8, and then to round things out, I already said Ja was my 10, but I had Halliburton at 9, and I know it's been an
I get it.
absolute
No, I get it.
it's been an absolute roller coaster with Tyrese Halliburton, right? But last 15 games, and by the way, he just tweaked his hamstring, and it is just a tweak. It's not as serious as it was. They said he was questionable actually for tonight's game, but he should be back soon, which, it is scary because it's a hamstring. But last 15 games before the hamstring, 19 points a game, 9.5 assists, only 1.5 turnovers, and 64.7% true shooting, along with 40% from the 3-point line. So he figured out the jumper. He got his confidence back, and 9.5 assists to 1.5 turnover. That's why you love Tyrese Halliburton. That's why he's on the list for me. I mean, 6'5", 24 years old, and just an incredible offensive engine, because of his passing ability and the way he's able to push the pace and find open guys.
I'm washing my hands of Tyrese Halliburton because I cannot get a read on this guy. Every time I think he's incredible, he goes on a horrible like year-long thing, and then every time I think, okay, well, I guess he's bad now, he becomes good. So I just I don't know anything about him. I'm just leaving him out because, like I said, he's just really hard to project. I mean, I think he's awesome, and when he's playing great, he is great. But there was that weird stretch there where he probably just was injured. So maybe a year from now, I'll feel better about him, and he'll definitely make this list over some guys. But as of now, I'm letting him be for a little bit because he's like a Buddy Hield to me, where it's like he reels me in every time, and then he shits the bed. But he's not nearly as bad as Buddy Hield is. So he's just had higher highs than Buddy Hield for sure. And he was never playing as bad as Buddy Hield. But you know what I'm saying. Some guys that didn't make the list. Sengun, I think he's really, really fun. He's a really good young player. I just don't know if that's I just don't know about him yet, If he gets his own team, I would wonder what that would look like. J-Dub, we talked about a little bit. We haven't talked about Maxey. I don't think Maxey is ever going to be good enough to be a number one option on a winning basketball team. I do think he is a great second or third option on a very good basketball team, if not a championship team. Um, let's see. And then Garland. And we talked about him a little bit, just not enough consistency for me. Same thing. I don't know if you ever can have him as your number one option on a incredible team, but as a number two or number three option, I think that is where he is best suited to be. Anything else you want to say about these guys?
No, no. Let's just go through the list again. I'll give mine 1 through 10. So I had Wemby 1, Luca 2, Ant 3, Paolo 4, Chet 5, Cade 6, Mobley 7, Franz 8, Halliburton 9, and Ja Morant 10.
Oh, we forgot Jaren Jackson Jr. He's also one of the eligible guys. Very good defender. He's getting his shot going.
Having
all
a great year. Might make an All NBA team.
Having a great year. Might make an All NBA team. Exactly. He might be one of the best performers on a championship team. I just think I would be hard pressed if you got Jaren Jackson Jr. You're like, I'm going to build around this guy. I don't know how successful that would be. So
yeah,
that's why I left him off the list. I had Wemby 1, Paolo 2, Luca 3, Ant 4, Chet 5, Cade 6. I had Jalen Johnson 7, Evan Mobley 8, Ja Morant 9, and then Franz Wagner 10. So
okay.
Yeah, I think I'll probably get ripped apart from my list, but you'll see it one day with Jalen Johnson. I hope. I really hope so.
Yeah, honestly, I think it's crazy to have him over Mobley. I think that's a clear cut one for me. But enough arguing for today, Max. Do you have any closing thoughts?
No, excited to go see Den of Thieves with you and your pops today. I think it's gonna be a great one. We talked potentially about getting slushies. I don't know if that's still on the table after
we said
Jalen
if
Johnson
it's blue raspberry, if they have the blue raspberry flavor or cherry, yeah, but we're not gonna do like a Coke slushie because come on, who wants that?
Come on, we're adults. We're adults. We might be going to a movie with your dad, but we're adults. So
hey, I invited him. He wanted to go.
No, I'm very happy he's coming. What are we thinking salty wise for the snacks? Are we going popcorn, no popcorn? What's your move there?
I'm definitely going popcorn. Usually I go popcorn, peanut M&M's, root beer.
Wow, that's an incredible incredible combo right there. Yeah, see, I raw dog movies a lot, so I go by myself and with nothing. And
that's insanity.
Yeah, and I realized that I probably looked like a serial killer or like someone creepy. But
you're definitely on a list.
I started to try. Yeah, probably. Especially when the movie's like it's like 1:30 and I'm going to see Ferrari by myself and walking out early because it sucked. Trying to think. There's some crazy movies I've gone to see by myself. I raw dog Twisters. That was crazy.
That's not a fun one to go alone. You should go to like.
No, I know. I was the only one in the theater, so by myself. I like got out of work early, and I was like, I'm gonna go see Twisters, and then I did that, and I was like, yeah, this is a weird thing that I'm doing. I'll probably go. So for me, the issue with the popcorn is I always get it, and the first couple of handfuls are great, and then I'm very sick of it by the end of it. And if they could make like a little. Like just a one handful thing that I would buy that probably.
That's a great invention. Like,
yeah,
well, I mean, like one handful of popcorn, 2 handfuls of popcorn. Like, could they sell that for like, I don't know, $4, $5?
Like a kitty size. I would probably get that honestly, just because that's the amount I want. I want a couple kernels, nothing too crazy. So I think for this, I'll probably stick to slushies and go from there. But
if I go slushy popcorn peanut M&M root beer, you will not be hearing from me for quite some time.
So you're still going root beer. So you're still going root beer.
The slushy to me is not a drink. The slushy is like a dessert. Like it's not like a
brother. The slushy is whatever it needs to be. Man. It's whatever it needs to be.
I don't know. I think I still need like a pure liquid to quench my thirst. Whereas the slushy is
ever
more
try
like,
water?
Yeah, but I'm not paying $17 for a smart water. I mean, it's ridiculous.
You bring in a water bottle. I saw you drinking out of a Walla, so I think you can. Whatever. Yeah, is that what that was?
Stanley.
Oh, I thought you had an Owala thing. Never mind. That's nice. Anyways, you can bring those. I know that because you know how girlfriends love water bottles.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine just brings hers in, and they are fine with it.
There you go. All right, maybe I'll do that.
So, yeah, maybe you can do that. I'm trying to think. I would say, oh, you know what? You mentioned like a sugar overload. Real quick, I just witnessed my grandfather. He made me take like I took him out today, and we stopped at McDonald's just to get a Coke for him, and then we came back to the house. He drank another Coke, ate a glazed donut and a cookie, and I think he might be pre-diabetic.
That's just it is so great to
Think about
be
that.
in your
Think about that.
80s. That is awesome.
It- think about that. Glazed donut is if I eat a glazed donut, that's the thing I'm eating that day. For like that's I'm not eating it. That's a lot. That
That's
like
your
I feel
sugar for the
physically
day.
ill after eating one of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's off of two Cokes parlayed with a fucking chocolate chip cookie. That's ridiculous.
It's awesome. He's living his best life.
Mind you, he's sucking down Werthers and Lifesavers all in between this. So
That goes without
it's
saying.
insane what he's capable of. Yeah, that goes without saying, obviously. So just an incredible feat from that guy. So maybe that's where I got it from when I made this crappy list. But a lot of fun with you, Jordan. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back later in the week, or no, sorry, next week with another Tuesday episode talking about the NBA as always. As always, click the link in the description to get more of us. We have Jordan's TikTok, which is popping off. You're almost at 13,000 followers now, so shout out to you. My TikTok is flopping very hard. I have like 300 followers and not doing great, but I work very hard on the videos. So give those a like and share if you can. And then if you're on YouTube, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Tell your friends about us. And if you're on Spotify or Apple Music, please leave a 5-star review. That helps us out so much. But yeah, as always, thank you all for listening. We'll be back later, and peace.